Hello, anybody, as a former colleague of ours used to say. It's Eddie Garcia. It's Doug Stolhand. Oh, the other way.
Was
Doug
that a Van
Stolhand.
Earl Wright
It
reference?
was. It was.
Hello, everybody,
Van
and
Earl
welcome
wrong.
to the National Sports. He disappeared. He
He
was good.
has. He has disappeared. Some
That
people
guy.
really did. He went to Fox Sports Radio for a little while and was terrible because he
I
was
can see that.
mailing
He's a
it
TV
in.
guy.
I know, but I mean, if you're going to put your name on something, don't just mail it in. But anyway, yeah, I liked him. Fair enough.
I'm
I
just
saw.
saying, for all the people that are just evergreen, that always are on TV, and you're like, that guy's still around. Van Earl was good, entertaining, had a lot of energy on TV, and it's surprising that he just completely disappeared in a world where he can't land on Pac-12 network or Big Ten network or SEC network or ACC network or anything.
There are a lot of options out there, that's for sure.
Yeah,
The Tennis Channel
yeah.
is looking for talent. Hello, Patreon friends. It's Eddie and Doug with just extra shenanigans for you. Just shooting the breeze here. Doug and I were talking before I hit the record button about putting up Christmas decorations. I have a giant Christmas tree actually over my shoulder here that you can't see, but I've got our decorations up for the most part. I'd say 80% decorations up here in the neighborhood. They do pretty good up here in the neighborhood. You know about the neighbor across the street, of course. He's got a spotlight and a 50-foot inflatable Santa Claus and all kinds of craziness. But
I have 100% of my decorations up.
which is to say zero.
That's right.
Doug's not the decorating type apparently in the
No, I
neighborhood there.
carry the holiday spirit in my heart. I don't feel the
Yes.
need to make overt displays of allegiances to Saint Nick.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
He knows how I feel about him, and vice versa.
I'm sure. I'm sure he's magic, so of course he does.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see there's a movie out about I don't know. I guess it's like a vigilante Santa Claus. Have you seen that?
Violent Night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. We've had that a couple times, right? Like
Have we? I don't know. What are the other
the one with Mel Gibson.
Oh no, don't go there. You're not one of those people, are you?
What?
Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Mel Gibson, not.
Oh, Lethal Weapon is also not a Christmas movie. Just because a movie is set during the holidays doesn't make it a Christmas movie.
I did not say it was.
Yeah, I think you've implied that.
No, I think
All right.
you're
Well,
forgetting.
then clarify your comments then.
I'm looking up the name of the movie.
Mel Gibson was in a movie where he played Santa Claus.
Yeah, Fat Man.
This must have been something recent.
'Tis the season to get even. A rowdy, unorthodox Santa Claus is fighting to save his declining business. Meanwhile, Billy, a neglected and precocious 12-year-old, hires a hitman to kill Santa after receiving a lump of coal in his stocking.
Actually, sounds kind of amusing.
Exactly.
So, no, I didn't know about that. Did not know.
So that's what I mean. We've had Santa with a gun kind of stuff in the past, and of course, Bad Santa. Now a classic, instant classic.
I'm pretty sure there was a sequel. Yeah, I think there was a sequel to that too that probably did not do it nearly as well as most sequels do.
Right. I mean, because when you write a movie like that, you're not leaving it open-ended for, you're wrapping it up. And so to pick up where you left off and come up with a compelling storyline is very difficult. So it's not an expansive world like Star Trek, Star Wars, or anything like that where you can, there's a million stories we can tell. I mean, Santa's a jerk at the mall. I think we got the idea of it,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand how there's a sequel to Paul Blart Mall Cop. The guy comes through and saves the day on something. He's still just a mall cop? He's not.
I don't know. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's now at the police academy or something because of his heroics in the first one, which I never saw.
Yeah, could be. Maybe I'm gonna have to go back and watch the second one.
I think that's a great idea. I think
that sounds like a good use of my time.
Exactly. When you're laying on your deathbed, you're like, God, why?
If I only had a few more hours, where could I have found them in my life? Oh, that's right. the Paul Blart Mall Cop series of films. Why? Why did I watch every season of Love Boat?
How's that going?
It's we're in the middle.
How many
We're in
seasons were there?
There was 8, maybe 9, and I'm in season
Has that
6.
new one launched and been canceled already? We talked about that.
It has launched, and I believe it has already been canceled
Yes.
because it was awful. And I think it was a dating show, like a reality dating show.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
It wasn't the C-list
because we need another one of those.
Yeah. If it stuck to the original premise of getting people that can't get up work otherwise, I think it would have done all right for its audience, people that nostalgia. You get Jenny Garth on there and people from that era, the early 90s popular people. Charisma Carpenter's on this episode. All right, I'll watch that. See how she's aged and give them another piece of work, playing basically themselves for 15 minutes an episode. I think it would have had its audience, but if you're going to make another reality, like how many reality dating shows do you need?
I don't need any personally.
Yeah,
but
I told you the only one I would watch is if Tom Brady is on the next season's Bachelor. I would watch that.
I don't think that would get me to watch, actually.
Yeah, it would, because you'd have to watch it for work.
No, not really. I don't watch the NBA.
Ben Maller, Maller would and crew would be discussing it at length.
Not sure about that. So it's amazing the things I don't watch and still are able to do my job. That's how talented I am, I guess.
Yeah. Luckily, you're just given the broadest of information.
That's right.
That's like, what was the score? That's all I need to
know. And Ben doesn't even break down games, really. I mean, the occasional like Monday night game or the big, it's he's talking about stories. He's not talking about games, because I remember he gave me a bunch of crap one time about not watching the NBA. And I'm like, when's the last time you broke down an NBA game? And then that ended the conversation. Yeah. Because never. He doesn't,
No, I mean, he's on the overnight. That's not the time for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call in at 1 a.m. to talk about, man, I'm really disappointed with the Pelicans' effort in the third quarter.
Sometimes somebody does, and those people get mocked very, very thoroughly. Yeah. He'll say something like, you realize this is a national radio show and you want to call in and talk about the Timberwolves game tonight?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the rare show. I think Ben Maller's, and I'm sure there are many others, but Ben Maller's and certainly the Howard Stern show are shows where a normal person calling in is the exception.
Yeah, they stand out.
Yeah, and does not, so what do you just literally just want to talk about the game? That's, you don't have any crazy conspiracy theories or want to break news or, just ramble. You're not asleep. You're not drunk. Get out of here.
That's very rare. Occasionally we will get a good call, and then we'll be like, wow, that was actually a good call. It's amazing.
Well, I've listened to the show enough that Ben doesn't exactly set it up for good calls. He doesn't like ask questions that would prompt somebody to call in with a valid opinion. He gives his monologue, and then he wants you to comment on his monologue, not ask a question about it.
Yeah, true.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
We're boring people already.
I'm sure we are. This is what they pay money for. You actually paid money for that. What we just.
Well, I'll tell you this. I got a little bit of news just before we came on that has me very optimistic. And that
about
is
what?
That,
life?
No,
of course not.
No, certainly not. According to insiders and rumor mills, so I try not to respond to those too much. I'm going to wait for official verification. But apparently there is a spin-off movie or TV series in the works centered around Hawkman.
Well, then.
That would be good news for me.
I congratulations if it happens. All right, shall we begin the show?
Did we not?
Not the official show.
Oh, all right. Then by all means.
All right. Well, then 3, 2, 1, record.
First period, December 7th.
From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia along with Doug Stolhan. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Tuesday, December 7th. No, it's not Tuesday. It is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. On this week's show in the first period, we'll get you up to date on all the news in the past week, plus one extra day in the NHL. We've got the Bruins streak ending, the Devils streak continuing, a milestone for Steven Stamkos, some more issues for the Canucks, and more. Second period, we're going to be joined by former NHL goalie Mike McKenna. He actually joined me on the Locked On LA Kings podcast to discuss the very interesting goalie situation going on in Los Angeles. Hopefully, you will enjoy that conversation. And at the third period, we will read your emails. All that and more coming up on this edition of the Puck Podcast. But first, it's time for our off ice report. A couple of minutes about what's going on with us. Doug Stolhan, of course, is my co host, and we are both extremely pleased as our beloved Fresno State football team won the Mountain West Championship on the road against those loathsome and despicable Boise State Broncos, and are going to play in a bowl game right in our backyard and literally right next to where you work at gorgeous SoFi Stadium against the Cougars of Washington State. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. So very exciting. Unlike you and me, the Bulldogs didn't give up on their season after a 1-4 start and then reeled off 8 straight victories.
Yeah, this is amazing that this season ended the way it did. Because as you said, when we were 1-4 and our starting quarterback Jake Haener was out with a broken leg, right?
I think a broken bone in his foot, something like that.
I mean, it all seemed lost, but they rallied off 8 straight wins. And however much you hate your rival here in the NHL, I can promise you it's not as much as I hate Boise and Boise State. I loathe that team. And beating them for a second time on their stupid blue turf in front of their mittened fans with their orange wigs. Beat it.
Delicious.
Enjoy whatever the hell other bowl game you go to, because we are going to the big time playing a Pac-12 team in a big stadium. Going to be a lot of Fresno State fans there, I'm sure. We travel well, and it's a little bit of a anniversary for me because 30 years ago I was a freshman at Fresno State, and the second game I ever saw was Fresno State against Washington State at Bulldog Stadium.
Drew Bledsoe.
Trent Dilfer against Drew Bledsoe. And we lost that game 37-39. And it was fantastic, though. Had a great time. That season ended with a bowl game in Southern California at Anaheim Stadium against USC. We won that game, the Freedom Bowl, let freedom ring. I am hoping this is the second game I will have seen for Fresno State this year. We saw them play against Oregon State earlier this season. And this will be the second time, and it's once again in Southern California. And this is the first bowl game, or first Fresno State football game my mom has seen since the Freedom Bowl in 1992. So she told me she only goes if they go to a bowl game in Southern California, if they come to her, basically. And I said, all right. So, but yeah, I got my parents going. I got 2 of my cousins going. My wife is going. And I thought that was going to be the first ever sporting event I saw at SoFi Stadium. I know you have been to many, more than you can count, football games there at SoFi. I have not been to one yet. I've been there for private events and for tours, but nothing with a live event. And I thought, well, what a way to kick it off, the Fresno State bowl game. And then my wife won tickets to the Thursday night game between the Raiders and Rams. So we're going to that. So we're going tomorrow to see the Raiders, her favorite team, against the defending Super Bowl champions and probably the worst reigning Super Bowl champions in NFL history. And
How did
free
she win the
tickets.
tickets? Is that from a
They
work
have
thing?
they have a
Okay.
contest at work every week, and she entered, won, and we are off to see the Raiders. And it's fitting that two of the Fresno State guys are on that team. So I will be seeing Derek Carr and Devontae Adams and Ronnie Rivers for the Rams. So 3 Bulldogs on the field potentially. As I can't go wrong. But I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, we'll be there with you and Karen and her friends from Fresno are coming down, and they're bringing about probably 15,000 Bulldog fans with them, and should be good.
Just real quick, we were talking in the we have a little pregame show that we do for our friends over at Patreon. We were talking about the Ben Maller show. One of the crazy listeners is calling my cell phone right now. I can't imagine why in the world that would be the case, but Doc Mike is calling my phone right now. I will
Is
not
Doc
be.
Mike the one that drinks his own urine?
That's correct. Doc Mike is also the man who went to prison for practicing medicine without a license. His nickname is Doc. He is not, I repeat, not a medical doctor. But yeah, I sure hope he leaves me a voicemail. It's I met him in Chicago a few years ago.
Does that
I'm telling
gentleman
you.
have your?
I'm telling you. I met him in Chicago a few years ago, and he's a show legend, so I had to meet him.
Yeah,
Just for the story of it, and I needed his phone number to kind of connect with him or whatever.
No, you set up through an intermediary.
I don't care if he calls me. I just don't answer the phone. It's not a big deal. Believe me, the number of calls I get on my cell phone a day from things I don't ever want to hear is ridiculous.
I did sign you up for a few realtors.
Yeah.
Up here.
No,
you were very interested in buying that house.
Since we got our new air conditioning system, I get 3 calls a day from people wanting to like sell me air conditioning units or something. It's I just
got one.
I know. Somehow I'm on a list. I don't know.
Your timing could not be worse. And so speaking of the second period, you said you got the interview with Mike McKenna.
Yeah.
I begged you not to do that. I said, people don't care about the Locked On LA Kings stuff. That's for that thing. And you said, no, we're airing it. And I'm like, all right. So
I actually think the opposite was true. But I will say this, as you bring it up, I said I was only going to do this if I found myself in this situation. So I'm going to do it. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers on YouTube for the Locked On LA Kings show. And once you hit 1,000, you are eligible to have advertising on your YouTube channel, which means I actually would get a little money out of that. So I'm going to ask any listeners that would like to help me out. If you could go, if you have a YouTube account or a Gmail account or whatever, if you want to go on to Locked On LA Kings and like and subscribe my Locked On LA Kings show, I'd greatly appreciate it. It would be nice to get pushed over the not the Sacramento Kings.
Sacramento Kings people.
No, it's the Los Angeles
I watched
Kings.
them for 3 weeks waiting for you to come on and thinking, what is going on here? Where's Eddie?
Yeah. So
I do know a lot about the Sacramento Kings now, and that team is a hot mess.
You are the one. Speaking of hot mess,
we have a listener that is a Sacramento Kings and a Detroit Lions fan.
I'm speechless.
Yeah. That person likes pain.
Well,
I mean,
apparently, I hope our show gives him a little bit of relief, for God's sakes. But I have a story.
He's investing himself in the Columbus Blue Jackets as a hockey team.
Yeah. I do have a story that I think you're going to enjoy because it's just about something ridiculous that involved me. So during COVID, we were not going out and getting haircuts, right? So I have a cousin who is a hairdresser, and she was having family members come to her home and get their hair done and haircuts in her garage during COVID. Well, once COVID ended, my wife and I decided to stay with her, and so we go and get our hair, my hair cut, her hair done with this cousin every, 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is.
Every month?
Maybe something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure how often it is, but something like that. Anyway, so we've been sick lately, And so we had our scheduled appointment come and go with the cousin. So now that I had recovered, she's someone who you have to get an appointment with and all that. So I was like, you know what? I just want a haircut. I'm going to go to the old fantastic Supercuts here down the street and just get a haircut like I used to do back in the olden times there.
Yeah, for
So I
50
go
years.
so I go over there and I'm like, I like a haircut, please. Here's so and so will help you right here. All right, great. Sit down. And I quickly realized that this young woman is not good at cutting hair. She is really, really taking her time, and she's barely cutting any hair at all. And I'm just like, this isn't good. And I noticed in the mirror, the woman behind me keeps looking over as she's fixing the hair of the lady she's got, and she's looking over, and I could tell the look on her face is like, oh boy. Yeah, and so I'm like, and she's barely cutting any hair. Like she's combing my hair like 7 times, and then like using her fingers, and she's barely cutting a little tiny. And I'm just like, this is going to take hours, and she's not getting the job done.
Hours.
And so I'm
I've
just
been in the chair
like,
for 3 hours.
how do you handle this, right? Because I feel bad in a way, but I'm a paying customer. So I'm just like,
And it's
oh
your head.
man. I'm like, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? Because I'm not paying for this. This is not doing it. So
I'm not paying for this.
but she's not. I'm paying for a haircut, Doug, and she's not cutting my hair. There's like almost no difference from when I walked in.
What are you seeing on the floor?
I'm like, I've got that bib on, and there's hardly any hair on the bib. And so I'm in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how can I.
Is she making small talk?
No. She's concentrating on her work, and
you don't want to distract her.
No, and I don't. When I go do that, I never talk. I just want them to cut my hair and let me get the hell out of there. I'm polite, but I don't ever have a. Hey, so how was your weekend? No, I don't care. No. Still, if I laugh, I cough if I laugh. So anyway, thankfully, the owner of the shop comes over and says, "Hello there." She's like, "Would you mind if I touch things up a little bit?" And I said, "I would not mind that at all, ma'am." And she basically gave me a haircut. And she was very nice about it. She's like, "Oh yeah, we just need to blend it in a little bit. She's new, she's inexperienced. We're just gonna kind of touch up her work a little bit," which is like bull crap. You're giving me a haircut, but I'm fine with it. So she gave me a full haircut, and she's giving the girl pointers as she's doing it. She's like, "Oh, you want to do this? You want to do that?" And so thankfully, I got saved on that. I didn't have to ask to talk to the manager or whatever. So but yeah, I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to say here, but I got saved because the lady who runs the shop must have been looking from afar, keeping an eye out on the new girl.
First customer.
Yeah, well,
that's had a problem.
Yeah,
I can tell you, if I was in that situation, I would not have said a damn thing. I would have paid and got the hell out of there. Just
wow,
went back. Because it's just not. What am I going to do?
I mean, I wouldn't make a scene. I wouldn't get angry.
You're going to make a scene if you leave without paying.
No, I would have said, I need to talk to somebody and get a haircut because I'm not going to pay for not getting a haircut. I mean,
right.
I would have been very polite. I would have been very nice, but I would have been honest about it. So, but that didn't. Fortunately, it did not come to that. The haircut gods shined a light on me, and I was saved.
What's the worst haircut you've ever got?
I don't know, but I know when I was a kid, I think every kid probably does this, right? You give yourself a haircut. You think you can do that?
Oh, I did not do that.
No?
No.
Yeah, I did. I cut some chunks out of my hair, much to my parents' dismay. Although did I tell you about my nephew Gavin, who's now like 13 and getting ready for high school soon, probably?
No.
He shaved off his eyebrows the other day.
That's a cry for help.
Just cause.
That's not just cause.
And
he's on the fentanyl.
I was like, oh no.
How's it look?
It looks awful.
Yeah.
It looks awful. And I was like, I was talking to his mom. I had to go over for something, and she showed me, and I was like, I tried not to say, be like, oh my God. I was like, that's not good. And I was like, you gonna try and like draw some on or something just to no, seriously, I think it would be better if you actually drew some eyebrows on rather than be nothing. Because at first glance, if you're not really looking, you might get away with it.
Yeah.
But with no eyebrows, that you ain't getting away with that, man. It really, and even if you wear like a hat or something, a beanie, it might help a little bit. But
I'm reminded of a Simpsons episode when Homer and Lisa were on the run, and he was using shoe polish to give himself a full head of hair, and he had this big pomade, this big head of hair, and then he goes into a hotel, and he said, "I'd like a room, please," and they hand him the bill, and he drew glasses on himself to read it, and then with the shoe polish, and then when he saw the bill, he drew 2 angry eyebrows, and he said, "This is outrageous." And I'm just thinking, if you're drawing them on, you could always look surprised or always look angry. That's an interesting decision by Gavin. I never gave myself a haircut. No.
Oh, okay. Well,
Never,
I think most kids do something like that. But
yeah, no. And my barber is my wife ever since COVID. Jackie watched some YouTube videos, got the materials, and is now my barber.
You got the Flowbee?
Not the Flowbee, thankfully. She got the whole kit. The scissors, the trimmers, the whole thing. So she is my barber and has been for a few years. And
you like sit in the bathtub, go in the backyard. What do you
backyard?
Mm-hmm.
White trash it up. If it was full white trash, we'd do it in the front yard, like they do out in Oklahoma. When I was driving around with my my nephew, he was showing me his town there in nowhere, Oklahoma, and there was a guy getting a haircut by his lady in the front yard. And I'm just like, man almighty, where am I living? And then here I am. I'm just, the only difference is the location.
Yeah, you're way more sophisticated than those folks.
Yeah. No, who am I to judge them? I'm a jackass is who I am. So no, it's been great. I don't, even when I was paying for, like, Paul Cat, friend of the show, Prick Boss, he gets a haircut every month. And I'm like, every month? What are you, nuts? I'm like, he's like, how often do you go? I said, maybe twice a year.
My hair grows like a weed, man. My hair, like every 4 weeks, I got to get a haircut. It just,
or what?
Or I hate how I look.
All right.
Yeah.
That's often. That's way too. I mean, your hair grows like, I think, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I believe the more you cut it,
you're not.
The more it grows, right? That it's the faster it's going to grow. So
I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. We'll see.
Anything else you want to share before we talk a little hockey? Apparently.
Oh, that's right. This is the hockey show. No.
So I'm told. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Real quick, I do want to say thank you to a couple of our new patrons over on Patreon. Rich Wirtz and Stephen McCloskey are now preferred patrons over on Patreon. So
Rich Wirtz, it's actually, his first name is not Rich. That's a descriptor.
Oh, well, yeah, apparently so. So thank you to Rich and Stephen. And Steve, it's another name. Like, we had Dan Gans, I believe it was last week or the week before last, I saw. I mean, and look, I haven't been keeping track of this for as long as we've had Patreon. And I don't know if people maybe jump on and jump off. It's possible, times change. Yeah. Maybe you got to stop doing it, but I recognize these names. So they're not new. At least I'm pretty sure Stephen McCloskey is a name I recognize from somewhere. And Dan Gans for sure has been with us for a long time. So whatever compelled you to help us out or to come back, thank you very much. And I think Rich Wirtz might be a new one. Not sure about Rich, but anyway, thank you guys for supporting the show.
To see Dan Gans in the second half of the hockey season once things cool off for me at work. Hoping to go out to the AZ to see a Coyotes game.
Oh, very good, awesome.
Have they had a third home game yet?
No, I don't think so. I think they're still in that road trip.
I mean, think about that. We're 2 months into the season. They've had 2 home games.
Yeah. Not good.
I mean, there's no team can do that. I'm going to look up their home record real quick.
You do that.
Yeah, they've had 4. They've had 4 home games. So they have had their the games that are with the temporary. Well, you should know that. Your Kings played there.
No, they have not. The Kings have not played in Arizona.
Where was the game on the first? In LA?
Yes.
Huh? All right. Well, then, yeah, they got a game on Friday at home and then Sunday at home. So, yeah, they're gonna have a very heavy home part of the schedule in the second half of the season.
All right, let's get into the first period of this week's show. The big stories from the past week, as selected by me. The New Jersey Devils, certainly been a topic of discussion early in the season, and their road winning streak continued this week. They set a new franchise record with their 11th straight road victory when they beat the Philadelphia Flyers 3-2 on Saturday night. New Jersey lost its first road game of the season back on October 13th, and they have not lost since at home, or excuse me, on the road. Detroit and Minnesota hold the NHL record. Detroit won 12 straight on the road in the 2005-2006 season, and Minnesota did it as well in the 2014-2015 season. The Devils' next road game coming up December the 12th at the Rangers. But again, New Jersey enjoying a wonderful season so far. And again, a new franchise record with 11 straight wins on the road.
As you said, they lost their first road game, and that was back in the Fire Lindy days. And then well past the sorry Lindy days, they have won 11 straight. We've talked about them in the past, obviously, but it's December, getting into mid-December. Are they running away with this division? Are they putting it into themselves in a situation where they just have to play 500 to win the division? Because they have
I wouldn't say that yet. I wouldn't say that yet.
9-point lead on Carolina.
I know, but it's still 26 games in the season, so I'm not ready to go there yet. But I mean, we're going to talk more about the records when we get to the standings. But 21-4-1.
Yeah,
21-4-1.
I'm doing some
crazy
quick math here. That's always my strong point.
Oh, yours and mine.
If they win half of their remaining games, or let's put it this way, get half the points left available to them, so overtime losses, etc., they will have a 99-point season. Half. And the way they're playing, I like their odds to win more than half their games, get more than half the points left. So I'm not saying they've clinched it. Obviously, there's work to be done, but they would need to fall apart in order to not reach 100 points this season. And Carolina is going to have to get on their horse to get to 100 points. And Pittsburgh, who we're going to talk about in a second, because they are the Lazarus, the Phoenix of this league. They never die. They're back in this damn thing with a 3-game win streak. And that's without Chris Letang. So, but I'm just saying, as you look at the standings, nobody has a bigger lead over second place than the New Jersey Devils. 9 points. It's a 3-point lead for Boston in the Atlantic. No point lead for Winnipeg and Dallas. They're tied at top of the Central. And a 6-point lead for Vegas. 9 is crazy good this early in the season. And their consistency on the road, obviously it's impressive to win anywhere in the NHL, but doing it without the benefit of last change, doing it having to travel to and from games, playing in different time zones, it's quite remarkable what this team's been able to do and how quickly they have changed the culture in that organization to a winning culture, one that not only knows it can win, but expects to win and goes out and takes the ice with some swagger and some confidence and then backs it up with their play on a consistent nightly basis. Very, very impressive what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I'm still, Carolina, they're a team that can, I think, get on a roll and gain some ground. And I'm still a little bit curious to see, if the inevitable happens and New Jersey finally hits some sort of a speed bump, how they handle some adversity. But it is what it is. There's no way you can't be nothing but impressed at what New Jersey's done so far. And it would take a monumental collapse and just injuries right and left, Columbus Blue Jackets type of injuries, who we'll talk about a little later on, for this to get off the rails, because it's been really unbelievable.
Third best offense in the league, probably second best, I should say, when you look at points, maybe third best in per game scoring, goals per game, 96 goals on the season. and an absolute best in the NHL, second best in the NHL in goals allowed. They're plus minus, they're plus 39. And the other team that's leading them in the Atlantic, or leading a division in the East, the Atlantic Division, Boston, is plus 43. And they haven't lost in regulation on home ice. So New Jersey can't lose on the road. Boston can't lose at home. Those two teams are by far the class of the Eastern Conference through the first 25, 26 games of the season. Long way to go. And I'm not saying this is a harbinger of things to come in the playoffs. Once the playoffs get going, it's a fresh start. Anything can happen. But they've both set themselves up to make the playoffs and make them pretty comfortably, not have to stress about it in the second half of the season. They can kind of get themselves right, get themselves healthy. If you need rest, get it. And let's figure out the lines and the power play and make any tweaks we need to without having to worry about the outcome of the games in the process. Very impressive what New Jersey's been able to do. And it's hope for all the teams that are struggling that if we get the right pieces and things click, they've been waiting for the young core to take over and Dougie Hamilton getting some significant minutes. And again, they're not even going to have to make a move. They're going to get Andre Palat back at some point. And he's just going to be added to this team for free because he's been injured. And that'll be just gravy on this team. It's I can't say enough about how impressive their performance and results have been so far this season.
Well, you said that the Bruins can't lose at home. That's almost true. But we had a big matchup a couple days ago in Boston as the Bruins were taking on the top team in the Western Conference, the Vegas Golden Knights. Pretty damn good game. It goes to a shootout, and Vegas gets the 4-3 victory to snap the Bruins' NHL record home win streak to start a season. It was at 14 in a row before they fell to the Vegas Golden Knights and even got a point out of it in defeat. But the Bruins were down 3-0 in this one. They rally back again, get a point. But the NHL record 14-game home winning streak to start the season comes to an end for the Bruins, and it comes to an end at the hands of their old coach, Bruce Cassidy, with his Vegas Golden Knights, goes into Boston, beats his old team. I know they gave him the little video tribute up on the scoreboard, and he had the smile and the wave to all the fans there, but that had to be some pretty sweet payback for Bruce Cassidy in that one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's a guy that did not deserve to be fired based on his performance. They read the room and determined that the best way forward for their core, listening to their players and getting a feel for the locker room, was to make a coaching change. Not because he wasn't getting results, but because they just were tired of playing for that guy, tired of his message, tired of his methods. So time to make a change. He goes to Vegas, is obviously getting the most out of them. They were looking for somebody to do exactly what he's done, give them a fresh start and get the most out of them. He's done that. They bring in Jim Montgomery and have been phenomenal. So, and good for Jim Montgomery. We talked about it in the offseason that this was his second chance at being a head coach after some substance abuse problems. He had a drinking problem, I believe. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. I believe that's public knowledge. And cost him his job with the Stars. And he obviously got his life back on track, got a second chance, and he is making the most of it. And you got to feel good for a guy that got his life on track and is enjoying success after some difficult times, after I'm sure some very dark times. Think about being an alcoholic and then having it become public knowledge and it cost you your dream job, and just how dark of a place that must be for you mentally. And of all times you want to drink, that's probably one of them. And it's the time you probably can't have a drink. You need to stop. And for him to get himself back on the right path is kudos to him. And the Bruins, nothing to be ashamed of. They came back, got that point. They still haven't lost in regulation. They've gotten 29 out of a possible 30 points from their 15 home games so far. That's ridiculous. So Boston, though, as good as they've been, that's the amazing thing, is they're only 3 points up on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, they do have 3 games in hand. Their point percentage is the best in the entire NHL. They've gotten 85.4% of the points available to them. That is just crazy how good that is. and they have the best defense in the NHL, only allowing 53 goals through 24 games. That's ridiculous. So
we knew Boston, or we thought Boston was a playoff team, and Vegas
they
was a
were a
bit of
cusp. They were.
yeah.
I needed to see what what the new coach could do and what the veterans could do.
And Vegas, I thought, was a wild card team with their situation in net, and Robin Leonard done for the year. Who's a bigger surprise for you? You've got the best. The Vegas is the best team in the West, and Boston is
the
certainly
biggest
right there.
surprise.
You think
Boston,
Boston's a bigger surprise?
There was nothing. There was no indicator to me that Boston had, because we knew Vegas underachieved last year. We knew as Western
And they had
Conference
injury
fans,
issues.
yeah, and as Pacific Division fans, we knew Vegas was a sleeping giant. They were much better than they performed last year, and them missing the playoffs was a shocker. So yeah, they had the loss of Robin Lehner, but Robin Lehner is no world beater in net last year. He was not very good, and Logan Thompson was. So I was confident that Logan Thompson would be adequate in net, and they would be okay in net, because I thought fresh start, new coach, they're gonna come out here, and I was pretty confident they'd make the playoffs. I didn't think they'd run away with the division, which it appears they are going to do, but they are the biggest surprise, because Boston we knew was, or I should say, Boston is the bigger surprise because we knew what they were. They didn't make any big offseason moves other than the head coach. They didn't bring in anybody that would make an appreciable difference to the, if you want to say David Krejci, the guy's 36 and wasn't even playing in the league. You can't look at him as an impact player anymore. So we knew what they had. They were starting the year without Charlie McAvoy. And for them to be the best team in the league through the first 25, 26 games of the season, by far, is amazing. And, they don't have any great shakes in net. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman, that nobody's going into a season thinking that's an ideal pair. And yet, the results speak for themselves. What they have, the sum of the parts is greater than what you would think when it comes to playing on the ice. And it's pretty amazing what Jim Montgomery's been able to do. And just speaks to, maybe, I don't want to say Dave or Bruce Cassidy was holding them back, but that we didn't realize from the outside how much they were underachieving with him as their head coach, and the vibe that team had, maybe the mental malaise of having him there. We didn't realize that from the outside, but it's obvious now that team was better than they were showing us in the last couple of years.
Well, you mentioned the Toronto Maple Leafs are only 3 points back of the Bruins, although they have played 3 more games. But Toronto in the news this week, thanks in part to their star forward, Mitch Marner, who is currently riding a 20-game point streak, which is a new franchise record. The franchise record was 19, which he broke last Saturday with a shorthanded goal against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He then continued the streak with an assist in a 4-0 win over the Stars. The Leafs will next face the LA Kings on Thursday night, with Marner looking to extend that streak. The streak began with the Leafs' overtime loss against San Jose on October 27th. He's scored at least 1 point ever since. The old record for the Maple Leafs was 18, shared by Daryl Sittler and Eddie Olczyk. Marner has now collected, again, a point in 25 of 27 games this season, at least 1 point. Also in that same game where he where he continued the streak at 20 straight, Dallas Stars forward Jason Robertson saw his streak come to an end at 18 games in a row with a point. He finishes 2 shy of the Stars franchise record. His 18 point streak is a Dallas Stars record, but 2 young, talented players who I suppose you would have to say have injected themselves early on in the Hart Trophy discussion. But Mitch Marner, who, we've talked about it, he's been a subject of potential trade discussions, with things trying to, do they need to shake things up in Toronto? But and he started off slow, if I remember correctly. But when we had some concern with Toronto when they started off slowly, but he certainly is on fire at the moment. Again, Mitch Marner riding a current 20-game point streak.
And the Maple Leafs, we'll talk about it as we always do. But let's put some kudos to them where they belong here. The guys they're paying money to, the guys that are cashing the big checks, are coming through. Mitch Marner, 32 points. Austin Matthews, 30 points. John Tavares, 27 points. William Nylander, 26 points. Their top 4 forwards are the guys that are making the big bucks. And that's exactly what you need. You need to get your money's worth out of your lineup. And your star players, as we've always said, your best players need to be your best players. They are, all 4 of them. And that's in 27 games, by the way. So all 4 of them are at point per game pace. William Nylander's 1 point off of it or better. But then we get to the net, which is where you and I and a lot of people had concerns. And we said, what are they doing in net? They had Jack Campbell. They had Peter Mrazek. They had this player. They had this player. They changed it all, and they're going with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. I don't know about that. Well, again, we're not even to the next year yet, but the results are extremely good so far. Matt Murray has a save percentage of .932 on the season, and Ilya Samsonov has a save percentage of .924 with a goals against average of 2.09 for Ilya Samsonov. So that is absurd. Both of them are playing extremely well in net, giving them a great chance to win. You mentioned the Dallas Stars. They've been playing well. They're tied for first in the Central Division. Jason Robertson's on a heater, scoring every single night. They shut him out. Matt Murray goes in and flat shuts them out. So, and now Ilya Samsonov is going to get the start. They're just bouncing back and forth to keep each other fresh. Iron sharpens iron, all that. They survived injuries to both of them earlier in this season, so they've been playing through that. And they're still right there at the top of the standings in a race for first place in the Atlantic. So really, they're getting the money's worth out of the guys that they're paying. They're doing this without the services of their top defenseman right now, Morgan Riley. It's just watching them continue to put up points and play the way they're playing. It just begs the question, Ed, will any of this matter? And will it save their jobs if they once again lose in the first round? If they made all the right moves and they've proven over the regular season that the guys they've invested in and brought into town were the right moves because they played well all season. If they lose in that first round, will any of it matter, and will it keep Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas employed?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I don't know the answer. That's for sure. I would think if it's a first round exit, I would not be surprised if they are gone, regardless of how they do in the regular season.
One of the two is gone.
Yeah.
You know, I think at some point, Kyle Dubas would have to turn on his good friend Sheldon Keefe to save his own job. Or he can be a loyal friend and say, that's my coach. If you want him gone, you're getting rid of me too. And call their bluff.
Unlikely, but yeah.
Yeah. It's a rare friend that'll do that. But you got to know Kyle Dubas. He's a young man. He would get another job. And he knows that. There would be a team waiting to hire him and come, please make us better. So, but this is just, for Maple Leafs fans, it's got to feel so familiar to see them playing so well in the regular season and be at the top of the standings and be winning games and everything's looking great. But how are we going to look in March? How are we going to look in April? And will we come through when the games matter in the playoffs, in the first round of the playoffs? So that's what's going to be weighing on everybody's mind. Yeah, but is going to be the reaction. Because if this was the Ducks, if this was the Rangers, if this was the Blackhawks or any other team, the fans would be going crazy. Man, this is great. We're going to, this is our year. Maple Leafs fans have been burned by that match too many times to believe that this is our year. Yes, it's nice to see. Yes, we'd rather have success than failure at this point, but prove it to me in April when the playoffs begin.
Things haven't gone great in Vancouver this season. A lot of off the ice things and on the ice things. Of course, we talked, weeks ago about issues going on in the owner's personal life. We had a story last week. A former team employee is suing the team for what is she suing him for? That maybe wrongful termination or something like that. Claiming, that she was discriminated against because she has mental health issues or something like that. And the Canucks actually have played a little bit better of late, but didn't start off playing very well. And now we've got this issue with Brock Besser going on this week. He hasn't been playing great, and things got a little bit ugly because this past Saturday, the Canucks had their Hockey Fights Cancer Night. And that was going to be a big night for Brock Besser because you might remember that he missed time last year because his father was fighting cancer and ended up dying. So it was a tough time for Brock Besser, and apparently he was looking forward to kind of playing in this game. Hockey Fights Cancer. His family was going to be there, and they were honoring his father by wearing Dookie on the back of their pregame warm up jerseys. It was Duke Besser was his dad, but head coach Bruce Boudreau decided that he was going to make Brock Besser a healthy scratch for this game. He found out about it in the pregame skate, or not the pregame skate, but the morning skate. Apparently had a conversation with Bruce Boudreau about it. Ended up actually playing in the game. They claim it was because of an injury to Dakota Joshua that Brock Besser got in. He ended up scoring a goal.
Mr. Joshua.
Yeah, Mr. Joshua. He did end up scoring a goal, and the Canucks ended up winning the game. But afterwards, of course, Brock Besser was asked about it, said that he was obviously upset about it. And now the Canucks have apparently told his agent, given him permission to look into seeking a trade. Although there are all other reports that said that Vancouver had been looking to maybe trade him at some point. Anyway, but just another kind of ugly situation with the Vancouver Canucks this past week and Brock Besser.
Yeah, and look, we try to be fair on this show, but we're human beings and we have our preferences. We like Bruce Boudreau, you and I. He's a former Ducks coach. We both think Bubbles, as he is known, is a good man. Gabby, we like him, but we called out
Mike Babcock
for doing less than this.
Yeah, actually,
in with the Maple Leafs when he had, was it Trevor
Moore? Yeah,
playing in Los Angeles, and he could have made his NHL debut in Los Angeles, where he grew up with his friends and family there. And he had a bunch of people coming in, and then he didn't play him.
And that was just after they had that shooting in Thousand Oaks too, if you remember.
Right, and it's like, come on, man! Like, just give the guy and the community a bone. And what do you care if it's on your fourth line? Give him some minutes. The guy's not. It's not some dude off the street. It's an NHL caliber player. So we roasted Mike Babcock for that. And I got to roast Bruce Boudreau for this. Like, this is not the night to make that statement as a head coach. You want to make that statement, you make it the next game. You tell your tell your assistant coaches, hey, I'm thinking about benching Brock Besser because of XYZ. And one of them says, that's great, coach, but we got Hockey Fights Cancer. They're honoring his dad tonight. It's a big night for him personally. It's a home game. Maybe not the night to do it. Maybe wait one game, maybe wait till the next game and do it when there's not Hockey Night in Canada, when there's not National Spotlight, when there's not Hockey Fights Cancer honoring his father. Let's not have him in street clothes when he comes out for to honor his father tonight. Okay. And talk him off that, because this was unnecessary, unforced error. Brings animosity between a star player and the organization, the coaching staff and the player. And it really shines a light on everything and makes it so that now you have to trade him, I think, because that relationship has been poisoned between him and Bruce Boudreau. If you're going to stick with Bruce as the head coach, well, Brock Besser is not going to be around. I think he's done playing. He's done running through walls for Bruce Boudreau. So, I think this was very unnecessary by Bruce and unfortunate. For the trade, though, look, Besser's got 3 years left, 2 full years after this year, on a $6.65 million deal. There's not a lot of teams that can absorb that cap hit without sending you some money in return. So it makes it tougher to trade in season. Would my Anaheim Ducks be interested? God, I hope so. Could we use any NHL talent? Do I want to see, Leeson and Grant and Sam Carrick out there? Or do I want to see Brock Besser? Obviously, Brock Besser. Now, what would it take to get him from a division rival? Columbus would love to have him. God knows they need active, healthy players right now. We're going to talk about that in a second. So, but what would it take to get him? And so it's good. There's going to be teams interested that have the cap space to absorb his hit this year. If his agent is the one calling the shots, though, if it's the why don't you go out and seek a trade and let us know when you got something, they're not going to be calling those teams. They're not going to be calling the bad teams. Hey, Arizona, we'd love to come and play in a college rink for the next couple of years. No, they want to go to a cup contender. They're going to be calling the good teams that don't have the cap space. So it's going to be a tricky deal, but it's going to happen. I would be very surprised if they mend this fence and he comes back and finishes the season with the Vancouver Canucks. He's not playing well. He's not happy there personally. He's not getting along with the head coach. What's keeping him there at that point? And they're not playing well as a team. So they're not trying to cling to anything in the standings. This isn't God, I'm terrible with names. Vladimir Tarasenko on the Blues, where they wanted to trade him, but they were having such a good season they couldn't get rid of him. And then they ended up, doing just fine with him. So this isn't that situation. He's going to get traded. It's just a matter of where and when and what the return is. But this was such an unnecessary move by Bruce Boudreau, and I'm very surprised by a guy that's been known as a player's coach that he would do this. And I'm disappointed in him, and it's completely unnecessary.
Interesting story out of Ottawa, where Senators forward Alex Formenton is the first restricted free agent in the NHL salary cap era to sit out an entire season as a result of not inking a contract with the Sens or any other team ahead of the 5 o'clock deadline this past Thursday. Buffalo Sabres captain Michael Pekka was the last RFA to sit out a full season. That was back in the 2000-2001 season, but that was before the cap was instituted in 2005 and occurred under entirely different circumstances. Now, the Senators didn't seem interested in signing Formenton to a new deal once he declined his qualifying offer last summer. And then adding to it are the reports that he had some potential involvement in the Team Canada sexual assault scandal from 2018. He apparently was the only player that was questioned by, I guess, some media members about his involvement in that and declined to comment on it. Formenton is 23 years old. He had 18 goals and 32 points last season.
I'm not going to say that I know anything definitive about this. So I'm simply speaking from the outside looking in and drawing conclusions based on the evidence in front of me. You got a young player who may not be the greatest player in the world, but he's not bad, right? You look at this guy and you think, got a decent future ahead of him as a player. I'm looking at his stats last season, and he had in 109 games, he's got 39 points. He's a former second-round pick, 47th overall. Last year, he had 32 points, 18 goals in 79 games. You'd think that's the kind of a guy team would want to re-sign. They drafted him. He signed it. He had 18 goals last year, still developing. Sure, he turned down his qualifying offer. Okay, work out another deal with him. And if you can't, trade him. The fact that the Ottawa Senators showed no interest in negotiating a contract with this guy, the fact that no NHL team showed any interest in pursuing a trade to get the rights to sign him before December 1st, and the fact that he went all off season and all this season without a contract, past the deadline to where he cannot play in the NHL this season, tells me they know that he's involved in that investigation. And whether he's guilty or not, he's involved in that investigation. And they don't want him on their team. That's how I look at it. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe he's completely innocent and there's something else. But it's hard not to draw that conclusion when you know he's a part of that investigation. He's been contacted by the investigators, and then suddenly is persona non gratis to all 32 NHL teams. Nobody signed him to an offer sheet. Nobody traded for his rights. There was no interest in signing this guy at all. 18 goals last year as a former second-round pick. Something, again, 2 and 2 equals 4. I don't have to tell you what the math is here, but we all know what's happening here.
Yeah,
and,
it's hard to believe that is just a coincidence.
So he's going to have to get his name cleared before teams are willing to sign him again. What's surprising is that he is not signed in Europe. Like, if you get a feel for it and, hey, is anybody looking to trade for me? Or no? Well, then off you go, right? Go sign somewhere in Europe. And if nobody in Europe is even willing to sign you, that is also speaks volumes. So hockey is, they may not say something publicly, but they know. They're talking. They know what's going on, and they've talked to people involved in this investigation and in this whole sordid affair. And there's a reason he did not get signed, and I believe it has something to do with that investigation. I don't know for a fact. I'm not saying he did anything. I'm just saying he was involved enough that it has scared teams away from signing him. And think about this. The Boston Bruins were willing to sign the bully. What was his name?
Mitchell Miller.
Mitchell Miller. Boston Bruins were willing to sign him. And they didn't even want to trade for this guy.
Well,
Boston
they're
Bruins
sure
could
as hell not
easily-
going to do. They're sure as hell not going to do it after.
No, but right. But
the Mitchell
can you
Miller
imagine?
situation.
Look. We screwed up on the Mitchell Miller. We're fine. We'd like to announce that we have traded to get Alex Formenton. Wait. What's this? The mob has relit their torches. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's
just think about
difficult.
that.
It's difficult to believe that news didn't play a factor in this. Difficult to believe.
And we're not saying he's guilty.
Right.
We're not saying he did anything specific. We're saying he's involved in that investigation, and it's enough involvement to scare teams away. And I look at it the same way. If you ran an NHL team, Ed, would you want to sign that guy not knowing what the outcome of that investigation is?
No, and plus, let's be honest, they're not going to go on the record and say anything like you're not,
Right.
but they hear things that.
Oh, they know.
Yeah, they hear things, right?
Yeah.
So off the record, it's not proven, but you hear things. So
Right.
they've heard something and decided it's not worth it. I think is what most people believe.
Yeah.
Some did you see from the past week? Did you see that Steven Stamkos made history for the Tampa Bay Lightning? First player in their franchise's history to record 1,000 career points. Former number 1 overall pick of the team back in 2008. Picked up career point number 1,000 in a win over the Flyers last Thursday. In that same game, one of the more bizarre goals of the year, Carter Hart letting in a goal that I don't even know how it went in. It was a shot or a pass off the end boards, ricocheted towards the goal slowly. He puts his pad down against the post, and somehow it found a way through and into the net. Just a completely bizarre goal that just, I mean, it seemed like it defied physics. I don't know. I don't know how that happens. You got this giant pillow on your leg. You're holding it up against the post, and this little piece of rubber somehow finds a little crack, slips through, and goes into the net. Just one of the more bizarre goals you will see this season.
It was I mean, it's almost like he redirected it inadvertently, but again, it was a dump in. It was not on net. It went off the end boards, bounced out, and obviously there was enough of a gap there that probably the only place the puck could go was past his skate and into the net. And it's been that kind of a run for Tampa Bay Lightning. It's been that kind of run for the Philadelphia Flyers. We talked about how great the start they were off to and how this team was responding to John Tortorella. Well, that has gone right down the elevator shaft. They have been awful for a few weeks now, and 2 wins in their last 10 games. They're still not playing. I mean, when you think all things considered, they have 23 points in 26 games, which tells you how good of a start they had because they've been playing awful for a few weeks now, and they're still basically on pace for 80 points this season. But it's gotten bad there, and that was very ugly. And for Steven Stamkos, not a surprise at all. An organization that has won multiple Stanley Cups, that has multiple Hall of Famers playing the majority of their career with that organization, and he's probably the best of all of them. He's probably the best player in that franchise's history. And that's saying something when you have Marty St. Louis and Vinny LeCavalier as some of the predecessors in that organization as Hall of Fame players that won Stanley Cups in Tampa.
Talked about Bruce Cassidy going back to Boston and getting a victory did not happen that way for Paul Maurice, the new head coach of the Florida Panthers. He did go back to Winnipeg for the first time this past week, but his Panthers lose to the Jets by a score of 5-2. And that's a little bit of an interesting situation, just in the fact that Winnipeg playing a lot better than a lot of us thought, and Florida not quite playing as well as we thought they would. So
Winnipeg, remember we talked about in the offseason, Kevin Cheveldayoff basically said, I'm running it back. He believed in his core. He believed in what he had. And much like Vegas, he said, I think we just underachieved, and I'm going to give us another shot to prove my faith in this organization right. Makes the coaching change with Rick Bowness.
And then Bowness strips Blake Wheeler of the C, and everyone's wringing their hands.
Yeah, but Bowness, known as a player's coach, and then he's sick for the first few weeks of the season. Remember, he had COVID, and then he was out again. So the fact that they're off to such a great start is quite impressive for Winnipeg. And they've gotten a lot of bounce back seasons from people that really came up short for them last year. We talked about a few different players, and we said are you really going to see a bounce back season from a veteran player like X, like Z? Well, Blake Wheeler's been fantastic. 22 points in 24 games this season. Mark Scheifele, 21 points in 24 games. Again, the money players. Kyle Connor, the most underrated player in the NHL currently, for my money. Used to be a guy like Jonathan Huberdeau, and then the Florida Panthers went and won the President's Trophy, so everybody got on board with him. I think Kyle Connor is the most underrated player in the NHL at the moment. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, he may want to trade. He may want out. And he's doing a good job of making himself appealing, because he's got 25 points and 11 goals in 24 games. He's on pace for close to 40 goals this season. What team wouldn't want to add that? What team wouldn't want to bring that guy and a guy that's playing point per game and potential 40 goals into your lineup? So they're getting the money. And then when you look in net, last year, it was kind of a disaster in net for Connor Hellebuck. He was not playing well. Former Vezina caliber goalie that just seemed to fall off the map. .932 save percentage and a 2.26 goals against average in 19 starts. And he's got 13 wins in those 19 games. He's coming up big. The defense, the offense, everything's working for him the way it was expected to a year ago. And it's good to see, because that was a team that, like Vegas, underachieved, stuck with what they had, and are getting the results they wanted, and getting rewarded for their faith in their core.
Last week's show, we talked a little bit about the Seattle Kraken and Shane Wright, the first-round pick for them this season. There was a lot of, I don't know, if hand-wringing. Maybe this guy's a bust. They sent him down to the AHL on a conditioning assignment. Apparently did very well for the Phoenix,
Coachella Valley
Firebirds. Yeah. Did really well in his little stint in the AHL, and then came back up this week and scored his first NHL goal against the Montreal Canadiens. So Shane Wright, it's a slow start. Certainly a lot of expectations on him, but give him some time. He's still very, very young, and he gets his first NHL goal this week for the Kraken.
That's the team, Ed, that reminds me so much of Vegas in their expansion year, because remember Vegas that first year, we all expected them to be terrible. Where's the offense going to come from? How are they going to do this? How are they going to do that? And then they got off to a hot start, and we're like, okay, this is a nice start, but when does the other shoe drop? And it never did. They went on and played great that entire season, went to the Stanley Cup final. Seattle, I've had that same vibe. Me personally, I'm not saying everyone, but me personally, I've had that same vibe with them of like, okay, they're off to a nice start. Okay, the goaltending's playing well enough. Okay, their offense is playing well enough. But when's the other shoe going to drop? Well, it may not. They've got 33 points in 25 games. They are second place in the Pacific Division with games in hand on your Kings behind them and the Oilers behind them, and games in hand on the Golden Knights ahead of them. So they are playing great hockey. Their offense is legitimate. You know that from the 9-8 game or whatever it was that you went and saw.
Yeah.
They can score goals with the best of them. Now, they do need to shore up their defense and goaltending as a result of the 8 goals they gave up in that game. But on the road, they're 8-1-1. That's a New Jersey-like level of success, and they're just okay at home, but on the road they are rolling. And I am not going to make the same mistake I made with Vegas. I am believing that this is for real. Seattle is going to be in contention for a playoff spot all season long in the Pacific Division, and I think has a very strong case to be one of the top 3 teams and get one of the automatic berths, which I would have thought it was a guarantee Edmonton and Calgary were going to be 2 of the 3 teams that got the
Same.
automatic berths.
Agreed.
And right now, I'm in it's Vegas and Seattle. They're going to get 2 of the 3 berths. And LA, Calgary, and Edmonton are fighting for that final automatic berth.
Yeah, Calgary got to be one of the bigger disappointments in the NHL so far this season.
And if you want to talk about them, we talked about 2 weeks ago, I said they had that stint, and we're going to find out what they are. Well, I think we found out they're just okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're still not – there's something missing. And it was missing in Vegas last season. It was missing in Winnipeg last season. It was missing, it turns out, in Boston last season. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and it all the pieces are there in front of you, and you look at it and you say, this team should be better than this, but it just doesn't click for one reason or another. And maybe it'll happen next year, like it did for Winnipeg, like it did for Vegas, like it did for Boston. But it's looking like this team just is stuck in neutral, is just misfiring and cannot gain any momentum, and stringing together a couple weeks of victories to launch them into the top 3 of the Pacific Division. The opportunities are there. They're just not taking advantage of them. And they're still, everything is in front of them. You know, they still have a lot of chances there, but it's just, they got to get going here sooner or later. They're exactly even. They've scored the same number of goals they've given up. Neither one of them is elite. They're just okay offensively. They're just okay defensively. They got to figure out what they're good at and start playing to that strength as this year's team, not what they were last year. Tkachuk is gone. They need to start building around what they have now and figuring out that what their strength is and building off of it.
Probably the most noteworthy game of the week was the game we talked about earlier, Vegas against Boston, because of all the circumstances around it, because of Boston's winning streak, Bruce Cassidy going back to Boston and all that.
That was my Grandma Fiddler game of the week.
Yeah, mine as well. You mentioned that Kings Kraken wild game. We had another one, and we see a few of these every week now, it seems, and the offense is certainly up in the NHL, and that's probably not a bad thing. But how about that Canucks Montreal game this past week? Vancouver was down 4-0 in the first period. They rallied back for a 7-6 overtime win at Elias Peterson with the OT game winner. Like I said, it has been a bit of a tough season so far for Vancouver, but certainly a big win there for them. And like I said, no lead safe in the NHL these days. This is not the old Daryl Sutter 3-2 league that we had been around when since we've been doing this show. The league has changed. Scoring is way up. Goaltending is not, the advantage that it has been in the recent past in the NHL. And we're seeing some pretty wild games so far this season.
For sure. And when you got a 4-0 lead, you'd like to think that's a comfortable lead. And to lose that game, that's a bitter one for Montreal. What a rally for Vancouver, though. What a belief builder that is in your organization, to know that even when you're down 4-0, we're not out of this. We have it in us to come back. We've seen it before. And Vancouver, as tough as this season has been, and as much drama as there has been on and off the ice, they're only 3 points behind the Edmonton Oilers. They're 2 points behind the Calgary Flames. This is not a team that's out of it. This is not a team that can just give up on the season and say, let's start working towards next year. Plenty of hockey left to be played. Bruce Boudreau knows how to get the most out of his teams most often. They've got 7 wins in their last 10 games. They're playing pretty well in recent games. So they've got an injury now to Thatcher Demko that's going to be tough. They're going to have to overcome that. But he hadn't been their starting goalie clearing, he hadn't been the usual starting goalie. He's been having a bad year anyway. So Spencer Knight kind of took over, and now it's a tandem. But
it's not Spencer Knight. It's
or not Spencer Knight. Stuart Skinner. Is that it? I'm trying to get all my you know me with names.
I know.
And now I've got you thinking.
I know you do.
Let me think.
Let me look on my phone because it's not coming to me. Spencer Martin. Thank you.
15 different version. It's one of those guys with two different names. It's your dog's name, for goodness sake. Stuart Skinner's complete different goalie. Spencer Martin taking over with Colin Delia. Thatcher Demko on IR for the little bit, but this team's not out of it. And depending on what they get in return for Brock Besser, could be a benefit for them. You know, if they can find a way to turn this into a positive and come out of this with a little bit of momentum, could be something to build off of. But what a game, what a belief. Like I said, just giving yourself that belief on the bench at any point in this season that we're not out of it, even when we're down 4 goals in the first period. Even when we come out looking that bad, we can still come back and win that game. That's got to be a big confidence builder for the organization.
Well, we've certainly touched on a lot of it, especially the better teams so far this season. But let's give you officially the standings as they go into tonight's action, Wednesday, December the 7th. Well, let's change it up. We'll start in the Western Conference. This week, we've talked about the Vegas Golden Knights. They are in first place in the Pacific with 39 points, a record of 19-7-1. Seattle Kraken in second place. They are 6 points back with 33 points, but they do have 2 games in hand on the Golden Knights. The LA Kings have played 28 games. It's tied for the most in the NHL. Right now, they've got 32 points in third place. The Oilers are in fourth with 28 points. The Flames are a point back of them with 27. As Doug mentioned, Vancouver, 25 points so far on the season, with San Jose and Anaheim bringing up the rear.
In those teams, in that group, you mentioned that you believe that Vegas and Seattle are probably going to be 2 of the 3 that make the playoffs, barring something unforeseen. LA, Edmonton, Calgary, who do you have the most confidence in to emerge as the third place team in the Pacific Division based on what we've seen this year?
I don't have confidence in any of them, really. But if you're going to make me pick one, and I know Jacob Markstrom hasn't played well this year, but if you're going to look at the goaltending of all 3 of those teams, I think he's probably got the better chance of bouncing back and finding his game because he's a proven goaltender. I'm not believing in what's going on in net in either LA or Edmonton. So, like I said, I really don't have a good feeling for any of them. But if I were to pick one, I still think I'd lean towards Calgary.
Well, Stuart Skinner, the man I mentioned earlier,
with Edmonton,
attributed to Vancouver, is with Edmonton, and he's been by far the better goalie between him and Jack Campbell. I know Jack Campbell has the big money, but I think they're going to make the tough decision and tell Jack Campbell, we got to win games. We got to put up points. And I still am a believer that McDavid and Draisaitl can carry that team offensively, as we've seen for many years, and outscore people. If they get adequate goaltending, that's all they need. And Stuart Skinner, I think, gives them that. So of the 3, I would pick Edmonton, believe it or not, of the that I have the most faith in to emerge as the 3 seed. Something's off with Calgary, and I can't put my finger on it, because when I watch them, I don't watch them all, I haven't seen every single game, but when I watch them, it doesn't look that bad. It's like they're right there. 1 or 2 plays go a different way and they're winning the game. But it's been that way consistently for weeks now. And the Kings goaltending and we're going to hear more about it in the second period with you and Mike McKenna. Something's not right there. And I think it gets into their heads at some point of they're just the quality chances that they're seeing against them on a consistent basis, and the way the team is playing, it gets difficult to build momentum in net, and you're bouncing back and forth. We've talked about it for years. When you have 2 goalies, it means you don't really have one clear goalie. I think Jonathan Quick is obviously the better of the 2 goalies, but at the same time, you can't ride him every single night because he's probably at the end of his career and needs to, he's 37 years old. You can't play this guy 60 games anymore. And yet they probably need to in order to get the results they want. So it's a tough situation for them. But of the 3, I'm going to go with Edmonton. And then when you look at LA or Anaheim and San Jose, just absolute lost seasons, 2 absolutely terrible teams, both with 2 wins in their last 10 games. The Sharks at least have, I would say I prefer the Ducks, obviously not just as a fan, but to the Sharks only because the Ducks' best players are young players. Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, guys that they can build around in the future, whereas the Sharks are getting a great season out of Erik Karlsson and Timo Meyer and Logan Couture and guys that are their future is not ahead of them. The best hockey is not ahead of them for the Sharks. So I'm not. While I get that they're ahead of the Ducks in scoring, uh, Tomas Hertl 29, Logan Couture 33, Erik Karlsson 32. That's
That's
not guys that are
yeah.
part of the
That's
future.
we spent enough time on San Jose. Let's move on, as Brian Gumbel would say, to the Central Division, where the Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars are tied with 33 points apiece. However, Winnipeg has played 2 fewer games than Dallas and has 2 more regulation wins than the Stars do. Minnesota is in third place with 28 points, and you got the Avalanche with 27 points. They've got some bad news as far as the injury front. We'll tell you in a minute. Nashville playing a little bit better. They've got 26 points. St. Louis up and down. They go on a losing streak. They go on a winning streak. They go on a losing streak. They've got 26 points, or excuse me, 24 points for the St. Louis Blues. And then you got Arizona and Chicago as the 2 cellar dwellers.
I'm going to start with St. Louis only because Jordan Binnington, I think Craig Berube finally came out and publicly said,
enough.
The theatrics have got to stop. It's becoming a distraction. He's not firing up the team anymore. He's an embarrassment, and it's got to stop. So enough of that. And they've given up 100 goals, which is by far the most in the Central Division, and that's awful. They got a negative 20 goal differential. Their offense is fine. They need to figure out their defense and goaltending. Arizona and Chicago, they were expecting to lose. They're losing. No surprises from either of them. At some point, I'm wondering if we worry about Colorado making the playoffs because the injuries are piling up. They're not playing very well. They're just okay. And teams are gunning for them every night. They got the target. That's the measurement. That's the measuring stick. When you play the Colorado Avalanche, they're the defending Stanley Cup champs. That's who you want to go out and show you're as good as or better than. So they got to bring their best every night, and I don't think they've been doing it. And they can't just coast their way into the playoffs as we're seeing. Minnesota got off to a terrible start, and they've righted the ship and are back in a playoff position ahead of them in the standings. Winnipeg and Dallas with both great goaltending. We talked about Connor Hellebuyck, Jake Ottinger in Dallas, and everything that's been going on with the resurgence of Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, Jason Robertson's emergence as a legitimate star in this league, Rupe Hintz as a star in this league. Dallas is legit. They're going to be good all season long. They got the Pete DeBoer factor. His first year is always good. So I'm a believer that Winnipeg and Dallas will probably be 2 of the top 3 teams in the Central Division when it's all said and done. And then it comes down to Minnesota, Colorado, Nashville, and St. Louis. And only one of those teams is going to get an automatic berth. And the other 2 are going to be fighting with the Kings, Oilers, and Flames, and maybe Canucks for a wild card. So I don't think it's a guarantee Colorado makes the playoffs. I think they got to start playing with some urgency and not just waiting for the second half of the season. I think the urgency starts pretty soon for Colorado because if Nashville catches and passes them, and Minnesota starts putting some distance between themselves, the road gets pretty tough. And it's very tough, as we've seen in years past, to catch and pass teams, multiple teams, in the second half of the season when the playoff push is on.
In the Eastern Conference Atlantic Division, we talked about the Boston Bruins, 41 points, 23-1, the overall record. Toronto is 3 points back. They've got 6 overtime or shootout losses.
Yeah.
So that's helped them. That's helped them a little bit. They've got 4 fewer wins than the Bruins, and they played 3 more games than Boston. But again, Toronto is in second place with 28 points. You've got the Red Wings and Lightning both with 31 points. Florida is in 5th place with 28 points. The Canadiens also have 28 points. Then you've got Buffalo and Ottawa as your bottom 2 teams.
Well, Ottawa and Buffalo are huge disappointments because they were expecting to turn the corner and this was going to be a better year. We liked what we saw out of Ottawa in the offseason as far as making the moves in net. Has not worked out. Nothing's worked out for them. Injuries have hurt them, and they're right back where they always are at the bottom of the standings. Buffalo got off to a nice start. We thought maybe they had something in net. Turned out no, they're going to be struggling again. But at least they've changed the culture and they're building something with guys that want to be there. Montreal is a huge surprise to be in this race, and I don't think they're going to last all season. But the fact that they're with Florida 26 games into the season is remarkable and talks about the belief Marty St. Louis has done. And again, if all he did was resurrect Cole Caulfield's career, it was worth it to hire him, and he's done that. Florida, like Colorado, needs to start playing with some urgency. They can't be messing around here. They're in 5th place in a very deep division and very deep conference. And
they haven't had the injury issues that Colorado has had.
No, they're just not playing well. Much like Calgary on paper. When you lay it all out, you think this team's got what the goods. Well, it hasn't proven itself on the ice, and that's a problem, obviously. So they're going to have to start getting things figured out sooner rather than later, because in a tough division, I think Tampa, within a week or two, but certainly by the time we change the calendar to January, will have caught and passed Detroit. They've already caught them. So I think they'll be in the top 3 of the division. And when it's all said and done, Boston, Toronto, Tampa are going to be the top 3 in this division. Florida has to fight then with Detroit and with the New York teams for that wild card spot. And that's not a position they thought they would be coming off a President's Trophy and making the moves they made to improve themselves specifically for the playoffs by getting Matthew Tkachuk and improving their toughness and grit. So they got to make the playoffs for that to pay dividends, and that urgency has to start. Detroit, again, cannot say enough about the job Derek Lalonde has done going in there and turning that team around into a playoff contender without making a lot of huge free agency moves, and Steve Yzerman building a team that is sustainable and still has their best yet to come in the years to come as he continues to make moves.
And finally, the Metropolitan Division, we talked about the Devils, 43 points, 21-4-1, the record. They've got a 9-point lead on Carolina, who's in second place with 34 points. The Penguins and the Islanders both have 32 points. The Rangers are in fifth place in the Metro with 29 points. And there's talk about Gerard Gallant's job maybe being in jeopardy. And you've got Washington, Philadelphia, and Columbus rounding out the Metro.
You think Gerard Gallant packs differently for road trips after what happened to him in Florida?
It's possible.
You never know when you're going to get left on the curb. Don't either bring everything or pack very light so that you can you can't fire me, I quit, walk out of there. The Rangers are another team that is confusing, vexing. How are they not better than they are so far? And I think ultimately it comes down to the goaltending is just not been what we expected it to be. Igor Shesterkin was a Vezina caliber goalie in the past. He has not been this year. 9-10 save percentage, 2.67 goals against average. Yaroslav Halak has not been good enough as a backup for them to give Shesterkin a break and let him find his game. The offense is there. Panarin is good. Zibanejad is good. Fox is good. Kreider's good. Lafreniere has actually been good. Trocheck has been good. Everything that they're paying for has been there. But the goaltending's let them down, and that's surprising. And you got to wonder when that's going to figure itself out. Pittsburgh, as I said, you can never count that team out. They're like a horror movie villain. When you think they're dead and, this looks like the year, they're back. There they are, right back where they always are in the top 3. I think New Jersey's proven themselves. They're going to be a top 3 team in this division. I still think when it's all said and done, Carolina will be. I'm not convinced Pittsburgh will be, but if it comes down to them, the Islanders and the Rangers, man, it's going to be a hell of a battle. And then Washington is just, like I said last week, they're just there because come watch Ovechkin chase Wayne Gretzky's record. And Philadelphia and Columbus, disasters. Columbus, man, those poor bastards. Let's talk about the injury situation that they're in.
Yeah, let's rip through the injury report here. And it's, there's 3 players that we found out this week that are likely going to miss the rest of the season. And they're all from the Blue Jackets. Defenseman Zach Werenski, surgery for a torn labrum. Fellow defenseman Jake Bean, he had surgery as well for a shoulder injury. They're saying he's out 4 to 6 months, which is likely the rest of the season. And then Jakub Voracek, the forward, concussion, and they're saying it is unlikely he will play again this season. So again, 3 players this week in the NHL found out they're probably going to be done for the year, and they're all from the same team. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it wasn't a team that had a lot of depth or quality to begin with. So when you take those guys out of the lineup, what does that even leave you with? As far as what you're putting on the ice every single night, and it's ugly in Columbus, and all the good vibes of signing Johnny Gaudreau. You wonder what he's thinking as he looks at what's left on his contract and just plays out the string. He's already just playing games only because they're on the calendar, not because they have any meaning and in the standings. So when you look at their roster on a nightly basis, it is a glorified preseason game, and we're in mid-December at being liberal with that definition. So it gets there's some guys out on the ice that you're just like, who in the hell is Marcus Bjork and Tim Burney, and just the guys that they're putting out there. It's a tough lineup, and to lose those guys, as you said, all in 1 week, brutal. And Jakub Voracek probably done for his career.
Yeah, I mean, they're, like Werenski's been out for a little while and Voracek has been in and out, but to get the news all in 1 week that these three guys are likely done, that's for a team that's already had a tough year. That's very tough news. Colorado Avalanche star center Nathan MacKinnon going to miss approximately 4 weeks with an upper body injury. He got injured in their loss against Philadelphia on Monday. The Avalanche have also been playing without captain Gabriel Landeskog as well this season, so McKinnon's going to be out for a little while. You mentioned Thatcher Demko, Canucks goalie. He's been having a tough year. It got even tougher when he suffered an injury this week, lower body injury. They're saying he's out 6 weeks. Had to be helped off the ice in a game against the Florida Panthers after making a couple of sprawling saves. Detroit Red Wings forward Tyler Bertuzzi going to miss 6 weeks after undergoing hand surgery. Got hit by a puck in a game against the Sabres. Nashville Predators defenseman Ryan McDonough out 2 to 4 weeks with an upper body injury. He also got hit in the face by a puck in a game against the Islanders. And Ducks center Isaac Lundestrom out 6 weeks with a fractured finger he suffered in a loss against the Dallas Stars.
Ottawa Senators defenseman Artem Zub is out 3 weeks with a jaw injury, and Josh Manson, the Colorado Avalanche defenseman, out, what does it say here? 1 month, 4 weeks with a lower body injury. So when you take the Colorado Avalanche's struggles on the ice, and remember they already lost Nazem Kadri in the offseason. So their center depth had taken a hit in the offseason. Now they lose Nathan MacKinnon. The center depth is just not there anymore. And that's where the peril comes in of who are we putting out there in games that now matter? There is no cushion where they're at the top of the standings. Mikko Rantanen, JT Compher, okay, but it's not the lineup. When you look at their depth chart, you're just like, man, this is not the lineup that I remember skating the Stanley Cup just a few months ago. And it adds to, I think, the urgency that this team has to start putting some wins together, and the pressure that is going to be on their goaltending, whether it's Francouz or Georgiev, and the defense to keep games close while this offense figures itself out in the next month.
All right, let's stop right there. And we're going to stop the recording here of the first period for the Patreon folks, if anybody is watching this. And we'll have the third period coming up in a bit, but that'll do it for the first period.